The Life Coaching Toolbox Podcast is brought to you by Joeel and Natalie Rivera of Transformation Academy. In this episode, Joeel talks about setting the right price for your group life coaching program. This episode is one of 6 episodes in a series about group life coaching.
Now I want to talk about pricing and give you a different perspective and also maybe give you some insight that's going to help you develop an understanding of how much you should be charging. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that there are going to be other video that you're going to be able to see that's going to give you more of a coaching model perspective and a little bit more understanding of industry standards. So before we go into, I want you to consider a couple things. So consider your market. And what I mean with that is, what can your market afford and how much are they willing to pay? Because realistically, it's going to vary if you're in the United States, let's say if you're doing face-to-face. In Florida, from New York, from Kansas, or people in Europe or people in Asia, depending on what country you live in, depending on if you're doing it face-to-face, depending on your niche, and depending if you're doing it virtually or whatever it may be, it does impact. So understanding your market is critical and understanding how much people are willing to pay. Let me ask you, have you ever been part of a coaching group? And if you have been, how much did you pay? How much are people charging in your niche? And then the other question you need to ask yourself is, how much do you want to make per month? How much do you need to make per month? And how much time do you have? So do you want to make $4,000, $6,000, $10,000, $20,000 per month, $2,000? That is up to you to decide, but also understanding your time and your flexibility. Do you work a full-time job? Do you work a part-time job and then try to do this on the side? Are you doing coaching full-time? How much time do you have? Because that's one of the most valuable things. And when I look at time, I don't just look at time of how much time I'm not working. I also look and consider how much time that I have, but also assessing things that I want, like going to the beach, spending family time and things like that. So if you have a job and you also want to assess the quality of your life, then you can also put those things in as well. So one of the things that you got to look at is looking at your monthly income that you're desiring from this. How many hours do you have? So then it can give you a different perspective of how much you want to make per group that you have. And you might ask, so how much should I be charging participants? Well, it really does vary. Industry standards are usually 1/3 to 1/2 of what you charge one-on-one. And why is it so dependent? So just a big range. I'll give you an example, $100. So you might charge 1/3, which is $33 about, or $50. And the difference is really how big is your group, how much engagement, and how much access they have to you. So for a group of 100 people, for example, you might charge $33 because you might not have as much one-on-one, as much engagement with the group, so it's more them working together and things like that. But if you have a group of 5 people, it's very intimate. You're working with them on a closer level. You're interacting. There's a lot of engagement, which makes a big difference of how much you're actually charging. So I'll give you a perfect example. You want to make $4,000 a month. So you're doing it option number 1, which is just one-on-one coaching. So you have 10 clients that you see per week, once a week, and they each, let's say $100 per week that they're paying. So that's $400 a month. So at the end of the month, you're working 40 hours a month to make those $4,000. So it's pretty good. But what about if you had an option number 2, where you had 20 participants in group coaching, but you break those into groups of 5. So you have 4 groups that you're seeing. So that's 4 hours a week that you're working with those groups at $200 a month that they're paying you. So they're doing half. So they're paying $50 per session. So with that stated, you're working now 16 hours a month. So you can already see a huge decrease of working one-on-one and doing groups if you're using that model. But let me give you another model. Let's say you do have an option number 3, which you're doing 20 participants within your group. And you're only meeting them once a week and they're all in the same group. Now you're charging them $200 a month. So again, that equals to $4,000, but now you're only working 4 hours a month. Big difference than 40 hours. And realistically, if you've been in the coaching field, you know that working a client once a week is more than an hour process, especially if you're doing face-to-face, where you're going somewhere. You have to drive back, you have to prep. before you meet with them, you have some time after you meet with them. So realistically, it's taking you a lot longer than those 40 hours. So you can see the biggest benefits just from that example. 4 hours a month compared to 40 hours. Again, it's a lot more than just those 40 hours. So let's say you wanted to make six-figure income, $100,000 a year. Let's say you maintain that model. So now for option number one, you have to increase your clientele to about 21 people per month. That would be $8,400 that you're making per month. That would lead you to about $100,000 income. So, but now you're working 84 hours. So you're working 2 full-time jobs. Do you really want to work that many hours? Think about it for a second. Now let's make it more manageable. Let's look at option number two. Now you have 42 participants that you're working with, clients, again, paying that $200 per session. So now you have 8 groups that you're meeting with. So you're meeting with those 8 groups once a week. So now you have 32 hours that you're working. So you already cut the hours that you're making significantly from 84 to 32 hours. Now it's more manageable. Now it's almost like a full-time, a part-time thing that you're doing instead of so many hours that you got to put in and add extra to your week. Because again, you're not calculating drive time. You're not calculating, if you're doing it virtually, the prep that you do between each and client before and after if you're doing the one-on-ones. Now let's look at it even better. Let's say that you have 42, again, participants, and you're doing the option number 3. And now you have 2 groups of 21 people that you have. So that's 8 hours total that you would work per month to make $100,000 a year. Doesn't it sound a lot more appealing to do groups than the one-on-ones? And again, you can still do the one-on-ones, but then you charge more for your one-on-one sessions. And again, you can make $100,000 a year if you increase your prices per person, if you increase your prices per group. So there's a lot of different ways that you do that. But really what you're looking at doing, what we're trying to get to is that you don't want to trade your time for money. Meaning, if you can make just as much money and serve a lot more people with a lot less time, why not? Why not incorporate this? So when you're looking at pricing, again, look at charging at least half to 1/3 of what you charge for the one-on-ones. So how many people would you need for that group? And how much would you like to make income-wise on a monthly basis with groups? I hope that helps. I hope that gives you a little bit more clarity. And again, we're going to look at coaching models and industry standards as we move on.
Visit transformationacademy.com/toolbox to download free life coaching worksheets that go with the activities discussed in this podcast, plus other resources for creating a thriving life coaching business.